Well, welcome to my kitchen. And no, before you start panicking, you've not tuned into the wrong channel here. I'm not about to start to attempt to bake you a cake or anything like that. To be honest, my culinary skills are pretty mediocre. I am, however, here to talk to you about an ingredient that many of you probably already have within your kitchen cupboards that can drastically improve sporting performance, and you probably had no idea. It is this powdery substance here, bicarbonate of soda, sodium bicarbonate, or also known as baking soda. It's most commonly used for baking cakes and whatnot. However, add this powdery substance to a little bit of water, some cordial or something along those lines, and then drink it like a shot. And this can have serious benefits on our athletic performance. But it's not actually anything new. Athletes have been using this for years in their training to help improve their performance. So today I thought I'd explore it in more detail and find out a little bit more on this wonder substance with the help of Amp Human, who are experts in the field and have also cleverly managed to get this substance into a lotion. Now, I've been excited to make this video for some time now, partly because I've played around with using sodium bicarbonate in some of my training before, and I've definitely noticed a difference. But I know that probably so many of you out there don't even realize this is even a thing. And I'll be honest, my knowledge and understanding of sodium bicarbonate and the use of it in exercise is pretty limited, but I'm going to give it a go here. Now, we all produce lactic acid when we're doing exercise and working out, and as we work harder, we start to produce it at a faster rate. Once we go above our lactic threshold, we produce it at a faster rate than our bodies can remove it. Now, the alkaline properties of sodium bicarbonate essentially buffer this lactic acid, and it is totally legal. And from my experience, when I've used it in training, I could just simply work harder and beyond points that I ordinarily could. Beyond that though, my knowledge on the subject is pretty limited, so I think we need some help. So it's time to bring in an expert in the field of sports nutrition and also sodium bicarbonate, Nigel Mitchell. Now, Nigel has worked with some of the top pro tour cycling teams, but also an advisor for Amp Human. Okay, Nigel, what exactly happens in the body that makes sodium bicarbonate so effective?
The sodium bicarbonate is actually produced by the kidneys, and this is just really a response around looking at buffering our blood system. So when we're talking about buffering, what we really mean there is the body's trying to maintain our blood in quite a consistent pH or the acidity. And if we are doing loads and loads of exercise, then we're producing acid, hydrogen ions. This reduces the pH in the blood, and the alkali, the sodium bicarbonate, that the kidneys produce, they help to neutralise some of the acid and help to maintain a more consistent pH in the blood. The body doesn't like big fluctuations in things, so that's what bicarb is in the body.
Ah, very interesting. So as the body is producing it naturally, and I assume we can find certain foods that are going to help with this. Is there a way of actually achieving this naturally through our diet?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of foods that can be really quite alkali, and so for example, all of the green leafy vegetables are all really very alkali, and there's been some research to look at by having very much high alkalis in diet, can that affect our blood acid-base balance, and can that affect our performance? And the research has not actually demonstrated any impact on performance, but shown that it can have a small effect on the alkalinity of the blood. But you've got to be eating a lot of vegetables there. But it's not really enough to make a big shift in the bicarbonate levels within the body.
Okay, very interesting. So what kind of training or what kind of athlete is sodium bicarbonate applicable for?
Traditionally, when we first started really looking at using bicarb from an athletic point of view, we were really thinking about where the body is really producing a lot of acid. And so that's really the quite short events, the sort of the 90-second, sort of 3, maybe 6 minutes. But what we've found over time is there are a lot of athletes who like to be using it in longer events. But Whether or not it's necessarily the bicarbonate that seems to be helping athletes in those longer distances is still a question, a discussion. Whether or not it's actually more the sodium load that you get by taking the sodium bicarbonate, where we get a plasma expansion. And so by increasing that plasma, this may have an effect on helping with performance, especially in warm weather. So we don't really know, but we do. It is interesting because it will feed back I will get in from athletes that they like to be taking the bicarb in longer events, such as, to say, our time trials. I've known triathletes use them in like Olympic distance type of events. So whether or not it's purely that buffering aspect, even though there's that element to it, or some of it's around the plasma side, don't really know.
And could you, I guess, argue that the buffering aspect, even if you're doing, training for Ironman, like some of your training, you could use sodium bicarbonate perhaps for those high-end, like threshold zone 5 efforts?
Absolutely. I mean, I've worked with Ironman athletes where they've used buffering compounds such as bicarb within those elements of the training. It all depends on what they're doing training-wise, because as you know, there's so many different sort of fields of thought with Ironman training. You've got some people who really don't do any high intensity, any threshold stuff, and you've got some people who do loads of it. So a lot of it will depend on the type of training that people are doing. But yeah, looking at including it within some of the training sessions. So we've all done it where we've been doing, fartlek sessions, or we've been doing brick sessions, or things like this, where we find that when we get into the last few, the quality starts to drop off, or it feels like we're having to work much harder to maintain that quality of it. So this is where using something like that, I find, can help with people's ability to maintain a more consistent training load. And I've always thought that something like the use of bicarbonate is much more around a training aid than just a competition aid.
Cool. And then a few questions here already. So, I mean, how long does sodium bicarbonate last once you've sort of taken a dose of it? How often should it be used? And then if anyone was wanting to try using sodium bicarbonate, how much should they start measuring out, I guess, per kilogram of body weight, or however you do it?
Yeah, so one of the downsides with it is that people, often feel that when they're taking the bicarb that it is such a large dose, and they sometimes find that they can have some gastric issues with that. But I worked with a colleague for some time to try and see if we could what is the minimum dose that we could get away with where we're still getting that ergogenic effect. And so in the literature, the vast majority is around about 0.3 grams per kg. And working with Jason Siegler, who's his whole research career has been around sodium bicarbonate, he was suggesting that actually, if we're very careful with our timing, we can get away with a slightly lower dose of 0.2 grams per kilogram. And so we did some work around that, and we tended to use a slightly lower dose of 0.2 grams per kilogram.
Okay, so that works out at about this much for me, and then simply add a little bit of water to it and knock it back. Here goes. Oh my, I warn you though, it is pretty disgusting stuff. I actually used to try and mask the taste of it with something stronger like cordial, but even then, it's pretty hard to mask it all together. I sort of feel like now I've been through this, I should probably actually use it and go for a hard run or ride now. But anyway, aside from the taste of it, why haven't we all heard of this amazing substance which has so many benefits? Well, mostly because there are actually some side effects to it, namely bloating, nausea, and diarrhea, which, let's be honest, doesn't fill you with a ton of confidence. It's the last thing you want when you're about to go and do some hard exercise, and it's probably why many of you out there haven't heard of this before, and is why a lot of athletes choose not to use it or very often at all. But imagine if we could get this substance into our bodies without it having to go through our stomachs, and therefore eliminating some of these side effects. Well, that is where Amp Human claim to have managed it with their lotion. This lotion has bicarbonate of soda in it, and when you rub that into your skin, it's absorbed into your muscles and therefore getting the benefits. However, anyone with kind of a basic understanding of the human body will know that our skin is pretty tough stuff. It doesn't just readily accept anything through its surface, but that's where Amp Human have a pretty clever trick up their sleeve. How does the lotion allow our skin to accept the bicarbonate of soda into it?
The way that Amp Human works is it's a transdermal product. So the way that it works is where basically you're opening up these little channels within temporary channels through the skin, and the sodium bicarbonate is encapsulated into a fat, so that provides this temporary transporter through the skin into the tissue in the body. And the work that Amp's been doing is suggesting that about when we apply this, then about 2/3 of it of the bicarb's absorbed, and about 1/3 of it remains on the skin.
Brilliant. And then, I mean, how quickly does it work then, since after applying it?
What it looks like now is that it's absorbed within 20-30 minutes. So really people can be applying it sort of, before a warm-up, and then by the time they're getting into their exercise, into the training, then they're getting that effect from it.
Do you know how long it lasts once it's been applied?
But it's believed that it's lasting similar to the oral, sort of depending on how much work and everything we're doing, but between 2 and 5 hours, people feel that they're getting some effects from that. And again, it's really quite interesting. The thing that we tend to see as an effect more than anything is around reduction in muscle soreness and improvements in recovery.
Yeah, and I guess sort of for triathletes training day in, day out, then applying the cream, not just that session, it's also that recovery for the next one, later that day, the next day. Yeah, so really valuable.
So for people like triathletes, I mean, I would never advocate that people use something like an oral bicarb solution on a daily basis. Now, it might be somebody might want to use it 1 or twice a week for key sessions, but with something like this type of lotion, there'd be no reasons at all, if people are training on a daily basis, that they couldn't use it on a daily basis. So for a triathlete, especially an age group triathlete whose body might not be recovering quite as quickly as like a pro triathlete, and you're working full time, etc., and you're still training 20 hours a week, then this might be something that may help with some of the quality, but also help with some of the recovery.
Well, I don't know about you, but that has been really interesting today, and has really opened up my eyes to the use of sodium bicarbonate. Obviously, I have used it before, but I guess I didn't really fully understand the extent of its benefits in terms of pushing further, pushing faster and harder in training and in racing, but also how it can help recovery. Now, I'm also certainly not suggesting you'll head out and start swinging back sodium bicarbonate. Do your research on the subject, and as Nigel suggested, it's not something you should be doing too often either. Or you could, of course, explore using Amp Human as a lotion. It certainly sounds a lot safer and has already been used by a lot of the top pros out there, likes of Lucy Charles, Cam Worth, and so on. Well, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If so, please do give it a like. If you'd like to see more from GTN, why not head on over to our social media channels, give them a follow, and give us a subscribe just down below.